If no one's told you, I'm gonna tell you. You need to take time out. Guys, welcome back to another episode of our revolutionary YouTube channel here. This is Pastor Tito, and today's topic is about learning how to rest, learning how to take a day off, or what the Bible calls, what God calls, honoring the Sabbath day. I love this one. This is a really cool talk. In fact, the reason why is because this is one of the top 10 commandments. I mean, this was so important for God that, honoring the Sabbath, learning how to rest, and keeping rest as a rhythm when it comes to work was so important. It made it on God's top 10 list. But I think it's crazy because it's probably the one commandment that we ignore the most. And it's also the one commandment that we brag the most, that we break, right? And I'm like, oh, how are you doing? I'm busy, right? How you doing? Oh, busy, keeping busy, right? Whatever. Listen, it's not bad. Being busy is not bad. But it is if you are so busy that you don't know or understand or take time to rest. Now, there's a practical point of this, but also an amazing spiritual point of this. All right, this is important. Now, the honor of the Sabbath is one of the commandments. We find it in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 and 10. And you know what's interesting about this commandment? First off, it is the only commandment out of all of the other 9, right? So out of the 10, this one commandment is the longest of all of the commandments. So it's like the one that we would say the most, hold on, God, but, hold on, I'm not finished. All right, but then you got to do this, but, nope, not done yet. Let me finish. Right? It's the longest of all of the commandments, and it is the only commandment out of the 10 that starts with the word remember. Okay? Remember, meaning it's God knew this is the one that you and I are going to struggle. We're going to struggle to remember. We're going to tend to forget this commandment versus the others. Look, I don't care. I've had heated conversations with people, and never once did I need to remember not to kill this person, right? I mean, it's kind of like one of those. It's like, oh, hold on, I almost forgot. I forgot that God didn't want me to do that, right? No, like there's all those other things, right, are important, but this one is the only one that says remember. Why? Because you and I can be so busy doing, we don't realize how we're actually doing. That's important. And you know what's interesting about this commandment? It is the only commandment, well actually there's a couple, but there's only 4 laws in the Mosaic law that had a death penalty to it. And God issued death penalties to laws in the Old Testament to show them, because the whole point of the law was to reveal the heart of God. It was to talk about and for people to understand truth. And there was 4 things that had a death penalty to it. And every law that had a death penalty was because, listen, this action is bigger than others. Like if you do this, it will cause major damage to that life, to society, to everything else. In essence, let me just kind of put it this way, if you're agreeing with the death penalty or not, but God issued a death penalty to certain principles because he says, if you guys operate in this way, you will bring death and destruction to yourself and your culture and your society faster than a lot of other stuff. So it's huge. And what's crazy is that this commandment came with a death penalty. That if you did not take a day off, you die. All right, now that seems extreme. That happened to somebody in the Old Testament as well, which is crazy. You can look it up. But the whole point is this, is because God knows that without a rhythm of rest, you will die. Do you know how many marriages right now are dying because both husband and wife, everybody's so busy at work, no one's working on their relationship. Okay, that happens. Do you know how many, your kids, how many kids right now are struggling and they're fighting with their parents? Why? Because the parents, everybody's so busy working, no one's working on being a parent, no one's working on wrestling with, building those relationships. Work is great. Work is important. Hard work is actually very biblical. But, all right, you have to understand the balance between work and rest. Because if you don't, okay, if you rob yourself of rest, because you gotta grind, I don't know, that's the thing, right? Hey, no days off, right? You gotta hustle, you gotta grind, you gotta do all that. That's important, and I recommend that. God said you gotta grind for 6 days. Some of us barely put in 40 hours a week, okay? So God says 6 days you gotta be putting in that work, but that one day, you gotta learn to rest. You gotta have this rhythm. And there's so many beautiful principles about that. In fact, I did a whole sermon series, couple sermons on that, which I'll put a link in below if you want some more details. But I just want to tell you guys why it's important to rest. Because if you rob yourself of rest, you will be robbed of the rest of your life. Okay? It's actually, you can produce unhealthy habits if you're not taking care of yourself. You can be robbed of a relationship if you are robbed of rest. You need to listen. You are no good to anyone if you are not doing good. You are not good to anyone if you're not doing good. And this is why it is so important. Look, Ecclesiastes 10:10, all right? Solomon drops a bomb when he says, if the axe is dull and one does not sharpen its edge, then one must exert more strength. However, the advantage of wisdom is that it brings success. So obviously there's a common sense to that, right? If you're using a dull knife or a dull axe, you gotta really put some muscle on it. But now you're exerting more energy. That's the thing. If we don't take time to rest, to reset our edge spiritually, physically, emotionally, if we're not filling up our tanks, okay, we're gonna run on E, we're gonna break down, literally have a breakdown, physical breakdown, emotional breakdown, right? This is why it's so important to get that edge and to rest, because notice there's wisdom in that. It brings that advantage. You get an edge, all right, on life. And so it's important. So I want to encourage you guys, if you're not taking a day off, once a week, if you get, there's ways you can do that. Again, in the sermon, I break it down. How can you do it? When? Why? But I want to encourage you right now. I don't want you to be robbed of the rest of your life or of relationships or of anything else because you're literally breaking yourself against this commandment. Okay, you're breaking yourself as you're breaking this by being too busy. That's not what God wants from you. In fact, let me give you the big reason why we have this whole Sabbath commandment. God wanted people to know that, listen, you need to rest and enjoy me. Enjoy me. And the whole point of taking one day off out of 6 to rest from your work is to teach us a principle that one day there will come a time where we can rest from the ultimate work. The ultimate work is having to work for our salvation. Because of what Jesus did, because of the work that Jesus put on the cross and through the grave, when Jesus was here, all right, he put in work. By the way, but he also took naps, all right? He made sure to rest while he was working, but he put in work. Because of the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross and through the resurrection, okay, we can rest from the work of having to work to earn God's approval, work to earn our salvation. We don't have to work for that. All we have to do is believe and receive and rest in the work that Jesus did. That's what this was all about. And it was also to know that one day we will enter into a perfect eternal rest, that at the end of our life, we will get to spend eternity and rest in heaven forever. That's what the Sabbath was pointing to. And so listen, if you are feeling rested, if you are just feeling robbed, you're exhausted, let me tell you what Jesus said. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28-29, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. Listen, if you just want to be more effective, you just want to be sharp, right? If you want to be more successful as a person, include rest and break and, do all those little things. You're going to be successful as a person. But if you want to be fulfilled and joyful and at peace in your soul, trust in Jesus. Trust in Jesus. Rest in the finished work of Christ. Okay? That right there, there's no better place to be than understanding what God has given you, and that you don't have to work to earn his approval anymore. You don't have to work to earn his love. You don't got to work to earn salvation. And because you don't have to work to earn your salvation, you don't have to work to lose it. All right? Because God is so good. When you put your trust in him, he will give you not just being rested. You aren't just going to feel rested. You're going to find rest for your soul. So I challenge you, if you're gassed, if you're exhausted, turn to Jesus. He's inviting you right now to put your trust in him.